I'm sorry, sir. I can't play ball. Lyra's voice wavered, a soft melody tinged with frustration as her violet-tinted blue eyes avoided Ethan's gaze. The playground stretched out in front of them like an abandoned sculpture garden, the surface a mix of cracked synthetic turf and scattered ice patches from the lingering frost storm that had passed hours before. Ethan Carter wiped a smear of grease from his palm on his worn jacket, the faint scent of engine oil mingling with the crisp, almost metallic smell of frozen air. His boots crunched over the frost-covered metal grates, each step sending a delicate hiss of air through the icy vents beneath the field. He crouched to inspect the small hovercart that had rolled to a stop near Lyra's position, its treads frozen in place, the display lights flickering dimly in the pale morning sun. The wind cut through the open structure, tugging at the edges of his coat and rustling the strands of his sandy blonde hair, and Ethan's tactical HUD blinked alerts of sub-zero temperatures and slipping terrain. He could see Lyra's hands trembling slightly as she adjusted the strap of her mobility brace, the delicate metal joints gleaming faintly under the cold light, reflecting the alien lavender undertones of her skin. Ethan's pulse quickened not from fear, but from the sudden clarity of purpose. He needed to help her navigate this challenge safely. "Look, I know it's tricky," he said, his voice calm yet firm, carrying just enough authority to reach through her hesitation. "But I think we can make it work." Lyra's head tilted slightly, her eyes narrowing with cautious curiosity as the words settled over her, her small form rigid with the tension of uncertainty. Ethan rose and moved closer, careful to maintain the safe distance her condition required, scanning the area for loose panels or icy hazards while mentally mapping the most efficient route for her to engage with the ball. The sun glinted off the nearby machinery, casting long shadows across the field, and Ethan noted the subtle tremor in her lower leg mechanisms as she shifted weight. "It's okay," he said softly, kneeling to adjust a tiny alignment screw on her brace, the faint click echoing in the open expanse. "We'll take it slow. I've got a plan, just trust me." Lyra blinked, a flicker of hope crossing her features despite the icy air and her visible discomfort. Ethan's fingers moved methodically, checking the hydraulic stabilizers and making minute calibrations, the whirring of small servos providing a gentle counterpoint to the crisp wind and the distant hum of the city's ambient energy. He tested the brace's responsiveness, nudging the hovercart forward with his palm, and watched Lyra's posture shift subtly, the first sign of tentative engagement with the ball. "There," he said, standing straight and brushing his hands on his pants, the tension in the air giving way to a quiet anticipation. Lyra's gaze met his, a mixture of apprehension and the tiniest spark of excitement, and Ethan allowed himself a small nod, the human instinct to protect and assist rising to the forefront. As the wind tugged at the edges of the playground, Ethan Carter positioned himself strategically, ensuring every step Lyra might take would be supported, ready to intervene, but allowing her the dignity of independence. The pale sunlight reflected off her delicate facial features, highlighting the subtle contours of her alien physiology, the shimmer of violet under her skin catching the light in a way that made her appear both fragile and resilient at once. Ethan inhaled, feeling the cold bite of the air, the faint smell of ozone from the frost storm still lingering, and thought quietly that sometimes the simplest gestures, adjusting a brace, guiding a hovercart, offering a hand, could bridge the gap between worlds. The morning stretched forward, every movement measured, every breath deliberate. As Lyra slowly extended her mechanical leg toward the ball, her fingers brushing the cold surface, the first real interaction in a moment that felt both monumental and ordinary, the kind that Ethan knew would mark the beginning of a day neither of them would forget. The first tentative movement had passed without incident, and Ethan Carter allowed himself a moment to breathe in the sharp morning air, the scent of frozen metal and distant machinery filling his lungs as he observed Lyra carefully. Her violet-tinged blue eyes scanned the hovercart, the subtle trembling of her hands betraying both nervousness and determination as she adjusted the straps of her mobility brace with cautious precision. Ethan crouched slightly to maintain eye level, ensuring his presence remained supportive rather than imposing, his gloved fingers brushing over the small levers and hydraulic supports he had calibrated moments before. The sunlight, diffused through the lingering frost haze, cast a soft luminescence over the playground, highlighting the iridescent sheen of Lira's skin and the glint of her brace's polished metal joints. A gust of wind swept across the field, carrying a faint whirring sound from the distant hover vehicles, and Ethan noted the subtle shifts in her posture, each micro-adjustment a testament to her concentration. "Take it slow," he said, his voice steady yet encouraging, the cadence deliberate to allow Lira to anticipate each movement. She hesitated, glancing up at him for reassurance, and Ethan nodded, emphasizing confidence with his body language as he positioned himself slightly behind and to the side, ready to offer support if needed without intruding on her sense of autonomy. The ball, a small synthetic sphere designed for variable gravity training, rolled gently across the icy turf, catching the sunlight and casting fleeting reflections across Lyra's attentive face. Ethan extended a hand to nudge it slightly closer, demonstrating the intended path without forcing interaction, and observed her lean forward carefully, her mechanical legs flexing with a faint squeak of the servo motors as she reached toward the sphere. Each deliberate motion drew her further into engagement, her initial hesitation giving way to a tentative curiosity that Ethan encouraged with small, unobtrusive gestures. "Good," he said softly, gesturing with an open hand for her to continue, his eyes tracking the subtle rotations of her brace and the delicate balance she maintained. The frost underfoot shifted slightly as she shifted weight, but Ethan's calculated positioning allowed her to maintain stability, a quiet reassurance that every movement was monitored yet unobtrusive. The morning light shifted as the sun climbed higher, warming the metallic surfaces slightly, and Ethan took note of the way shadows played across the playground, using the contrast to gauge distance and adjust the trajectory of the ball for her next attempt. Lyra's hands brushed the ball once more, the servo feedback transmitting a faint hum through her brace, and Ethan's pulse quickened slightly in silent anticipation of her progress, a shared focus bridging the divide between human and alien, mechanic and child. He maintained a soft but steady commentary, offering tips on posture and timing, each phrase calculated to enhance her confidence without overwhelming her senses. A faint smile crept across her lips, the first genuine indication of enjoyment breaking through her initial apprehension, and Ethan allowed himself a subtle nod of satisfaction, the knowledge that small, deliberate acts could transform uncertainty into empowerment resonating through the quiet expanse of the frost-covered playground. The wind picked up again, carrying the scent of chilled metal and ozone, and Ethan adjusted his jacket, leaning slightly to shield her from the gusts while simultaneously monitoring the hovercart's alignment. Lyra's next movement was smoother, her mechanical limbs responding with greater fluidity, and Ethan's voice remained calm, guiding without commanding, reinforcing the delicate balance of independence and support he had established. The interaction, quiet yet charged with purpose, continued as the morning progressed, each successful reach toward the ball a subtle victory, a testament to patience, precision, and the quiet bond forming between human and alien on the frost-laden field. The frost-covered playground began to glow softly as the sun rose higher, scattering light across the metallic structures and reflecting off the smooth surfaces of the hovercart. Lyra's violet-tinged blue eyes followed the ball with increasing focus, her movements more deliberate and controlled, the servo joints in her mobility brace responding fluidly to each command from her nervous system. Ethan Carter adjusted his stance, keeping low and steady, his gloved hands hovering near the brace without touching it, ready to provide subtle guidance if necessary. The wind whistled through the exposed beams of the playground, carrying a faint metallic tang that mingled with the crisp, clean scent of the frozen morning, and Ethan felt the familiar rhythm of concentration settle over him, his attention entirely fixed on Lyra's progress. Each time she reached for the ball, he observed the minute flex of her artificial limbs, noting areas where friction slowed her motion and mentally logging adjustments for the next attempt. "That is it," he said quietly, the encouragement gentle yet precise, allowing her to feel in control while knowing support was nearby. Lyra's lips parted slightly, a breath forming in the cold air, her posture straightening as she pushed the hovercart forward with more confidence, the small hum of the servos harmonizing with the distant mechanical noises of the city beyond the field. Ethan's eyes followed the path of the ball, tracking its trajectory carefully, calculating how the uneven surface and residual frost might alter its motion. And he communicated these observations with concise words, emphasizing timing and angle without overwhelming her with instructions. Lyra's fingers brushed the ball again, the contact deliberate, and she adjusted her balance instinctively, demonstrating the subtle learning curve that Ethan had anticipated. The sunlight warmed the frost enough to create a delicate sheen across the field, glinting against the metallic components of her brace and catching in the faint reflective highlights of her alien skin. Ethan stepped forward slightly, guiding her attention to the movement of the ball with an open hand gesture, the proximity calculated to provide reassurance while preserving her independence. A small smile flickered across Lyra's face, a mixture of triumph and relief, and Ethan allowed himself a brief nod of recognition, acknowledging the subtle success without words that might distract or startle her. He monitored the hover cart as it rolled smoothly along the intended path, adjusting the alignment with tiny wrist movements, and observed the interplay of shadows across the field to anticipate any momentary slips or unbalanced shifts. Lyra's breathing became steadier, the tension in her shoulders relaxing slightly as she began to trust her own capacity, each step forward a testament to her determination and Ethan's careful preparation. The quiet rhythm of the morning, punctuated by the gentle hum of mechanical supports and the crisp exhale of wind across the playground, created a sense of shared purpose between human and alien, a silent dialogue carried through motion, glance, and mutual focus. Ethan's mind remained alert, calculating contingencies for the next set of movements while allowing the momentum of her progress to guide the pace. And Lira responded with a growing confidence, the initial fear and hesitation giving way to the controlled excitement of achievement. With every careful motion, the bond of trust deepened, the cold air and icy fields serving as a backdrop to the quiet triumphs of patience, skill, and cooperation, the kind of connection that transcended words, species, and circumstance, leaving both human and alien aware that they had begun something meaningful in the frozen expanse of the playground. The morning sun climbed higher, casting elongated shadows across the frost-speckled playground and reflecting off the icy patches that glimmered like shards of glass. Ethan Carter adjusted the positioning of Lyra's hovercart, ensuring the friction points on the uneven surface were compensated for by slight tweaks to the stabilizers, his hands steady and precise. Lira watched him with a mix of curiosity and growing trust, her violet-tinged blue eyes following every subtle adjustment he made, the faint hum of the servo motors in her brace providing a constant, reassuring background sound. The air was sharp and clean, carrying a faint metallic tang from the surrounding structures, and Ethan's breath formed visible clouds as he crouched momentarily to check the alignment of the cart against a sloped section of synthetic turf. "Try moving it just a bit to your left," he said, his tone calm, measured, and encouraging, emphasizing control and independence rather than instruction. Lira hesitated for a heartbeat, then shifted her weight cautiously, the brace responding to her subtle muscle signals as she nudged the ball forward, her fingers brushing the smooth synthetic surface with tentative precision. Ethan observed the trajectory, calculating minute adjustments to counteract the residual frost and the slight incline of the field, guiding with soft gestures and subtle nods. A gentle breeze rustled through the exposed metal beams overhead, producing a faint whistling sound, and Ethan's eyes flicked to the movement, assessing any possible effect on her balance while keeping a relaxed but vigilant posture. Lyra's breathing became slightly more rhythmic, the initial tension loosening in the small increments of progress she made, and a faint smile touched her lips as the ball rolled steadily under her control, moving in the intended direction for the first time without assistance. Ethan allowed a small nod of approval, careful not to break the flow of her focus, reinforcing her autonomy while maintaining the silent presence of support. The sunlight caught the subtle iridescent tones of her skin, highlighting the delicate contours of her face and the gleam of polished metal joints, creating a visual harmony between alien physiology and engineered mechanics. Each successive attempt saw smoother coordination, Lira shifting her weight more confidently, anticipating the movement of the ball with increasing precision, her eyes brightening with a mixture of pride and cautious excitement. Ethan's soft commentary continued, offering timing cues and gentle reminders, never overbearing, allowing her to internalize the mechanics of motion, the faint clicks and whirs of the brace synchronizing with the soft gusts of wind. The frost underfoot began to melt in isolated patches, subtly changing the friction profile of the field, and Ethan made micro-adjustments to her trajectory guidance, silently noting the environmental variables while keeping the overall experience engaging and empowering. Lyra's gaze met his briefly, a shared acknowledgement of the small but meaningful victories unfolding in the icy playground, and Ethan felt the satisfaction of witnessing growth, patience, and trust materialize in real time. As the morning continued, the rhythm of movement, mechanical assistance, and gentle encouragement established a quiet partnership, a combination of human ingenuity and alien determination, with every careful motion reinforcing the bond and building confidence, leaving both Ethan and Lira aware that this morning would mark the first of many successful endeavors together in the frost-laden expanse of the field. The afternoon sunlight softened as it filtered through the translucent panels overhead, scattering warm patterns across the frost-speckled playground and glinting off the metallic braces that supported Lyra's movements. Ethan Carter remained vigilant, his eyes tracking each micromotion as she adjusted her stance and coordinated with the hovercart, the faint whirring and clicking of the servo motors harmonizing with the soft gusts of wind that brushed across the field. He observed the subtle shifts in her posture, the tiny corrections she made to balance and grip, noting how the hydraulic supports responded with a smoothness that suggested both mechanical precision and careful calibration. "You are doing very well," he said, his voice calm and steady, designed to instill confidence without overwhelming her focus. Lyra's gaze lifted briefly to meet his, a flicker of gratitude and determination passing through her violet-tinged blue eyes, before returning to the task at hand. Ethan adjusted his stance, stepping slightly to one side to offer unobtrusive guidance while maintaining a safe buffer, the crisp air carrying the metallic tang of machinery and the faint scent of frost. The ball rolled with subtle momentum over the icy surface, the occasional reflection of sunlight glinting off its synthetic sheen, and Lyra's hands followed its path with growing anticipation, each movement more fluid and deliberate than the last. Ethan's soft instructions continued, emphasizing timing, balance, and gentle coordination, the cadence of his words aligning with her natural rhythm and the hum of the brace's servos. The playground, once silent except for the wind, now carried the layered sounds of careful interaction, the subtle clicks of mechanical adjustments, the whisper of shifting frost beneath feet, and the soft thrum of the hovercart as it glided along its designated path. Lira leaned forward, her movements increasingly confident, and Ethan noticed the small but meaningful shifts in weight distribution that allowed her to maintain balance while propelling the ball. The sunlight highlighted the contours of her alien physiology, the delicate gradient of blue and violet tones across her skin, catching in the metallic glints of her brace, creating a dynamic interplay of color and reflection. A gentle breeze brushed across the playground, lifting strands of Ethan's sandy blonde hair and creating soft ripples over the icy patches, and he used the movement to illustrate subtle visual cues for Lira, pointing out trajectories and angles with minimal hand gestures. Her breathing steadied, her focus deepened, and the tentative smile she wore began to expand into one of genuine enjoyment, a reflection of both her own progress and the trust developing between them. Ethan allowed himself a subtle nod, acknowledging the quiet victory without breaking the rhythm of her engagement, the human instinct to encourage and protect tempered by respect for her independence. Each successful touch of the ball reinforced her confidence, and with every small triumph, the partnership between human and alien solidified, a blend of skill, patience, and mutual understanding unfolding across the frost-laden expanse of the playground. The late afternoon sun stretched long shadows over the field, casting a serene glow that accentuated the harmony of motion and focus, leaving both Ethan and Lira aware of the quiet bond forming in the crisp, clear air, a connection defined by trust, encouragement, and the simple act of shared determination. The shadows lengthened across the playground as the sun lowered toward the horizon, the pale light catching the frost and casting long, intricate patterns across the surface of the synthetic turf. Ethan Carter stepped carefully around a patch of ice, his boots crunching softly, the crisp air carrying the faint scent of ozone from nearby maintenance generators. He observed Lira as she adjusted her posture, the gentle hum of the servos in her brace blending with the whisper of wind through the exposed beams. Each movement was deliberate, her violet-tinged blue eyes reflecting concentration and the faint glimmer of sunlight as she followed the ball along its intended path. Ethan crouched slightly, his hands hovering near the braces without touching them, ready to provide subtle guidance, the quiet tension between support and independence balanced in his careful positioning. "Keep your rhythm steady," he said, his voice soft but firm, each syllable measured to match the natural cadence of her motions. Lyra's hands moved with increasing confidence, nudging the ball with a controlled push, the device responding to her muscle inputs with precision and smoothness. Ethan noted the small adjustments she made, the tiny shifts in balance and weight distribution, and he subtly mirrored her motions with his own posture to maintain a visual line of reassurance. The frost glimmered under the low sunlight, highlighting the metallic glints of her brace and the subtle iridescence of her skin, creating a tapestry of color and reflection that danced with each movement. A light breeze stirred, carrying the faint metallic tang of the playground structures, and Ethan used the movement to illustrate angles and trajectories with minimal hand gestures, guiding her attention without overt interference. Lyra's breathing became more measured, her confidence growing as the ball rolled steadily, her fingers adjusting its course with precision and a newfound understanding of the interaction between her brace and the terrain. Ethan maintained a steady, calm presence, offering gentle commentary on timing and stance, his instructions short, clear, and empowering, allowing her to internalize the mechanics while feeling the satisfaction of her own progress. The interplay of sunlight, frost, and shadow created subtle visual cues across the playground, which Ethan used to help Lira anticipate the ball's path, her eyes following every glint and reflection. Her tentative smile widened as she executed a small but precise maneuver, the hover cart responding predictably, and Ethan allowed himself a small nod of approval, acknowledging the achievement while preserving her sense of autonomy. The sounds of the playground, the whir of servos, the soft crunch of frost underfoot, the gentle whistle of wind, merged into a rhythm of collaboration, a quiet symphony of human ingenuity and alien determination. With each controlled motion, each measured push of the ball, the trust between them deepened, forming a silent bond rooted in patience, guidance, and careful observation. The late afternoon sun cast a warm, soft glow across the field, reflecting off the metallic supports and highlighting the subtle contours of Lyra's alien physiology. Ethan's focus remained unbroken, the timing of his cues precise, the support he provided seamless and nearly invisible. As Lira continued to engage with the task, her progress steady, measured, and increasingly confident, both of them aware that the careful, deliberate rhythm they had established would carry them through the remainder of the afternoon, marking another step in the quiet, meaningful partnership unfolding across the frost-laden playground. The pale orange of late afternoon bathed the playground in a soft glow, glinting off the frost-covered surfaces and highlighting the intricate details of Lyra's mobility. Brace, the small servos and hydraulics catching the light with every subtle movement. Ethan Carter observed her closely, crouched low to maintain a line of sight that offered support without intrusion, his sandy blonde hair stirred occasionally by the cold breeze as he adjusted his gloves against the chill. Lyra's violet-tinged blue eyes reflected both concentration and a hint of excitement as she nudged the ball again, the hover cart responding smoothly, gliding along the icy patches with a precision born of careful calibration and her own growing confidence. Ethan's voice remained calm and measured, offering timing cues and gentle guidance, the soft cadence blending seamlessly with the ambient hum of the playground structures and the subtle whistling of wind through the overhead beams. He observed the micro-adjustments in her posture, the slight shifts in weight and angle, noting how her muscle signals and the brace's servo responses aligned with increasing accuracy, each motion building on the last. "That is excellent," he said softly, nodding just enough for her to see, reinforcing her progress without interrupting her focus. Lyra's small hands grasped the ball more decisively this time, the mechanical feedback providing her with subtle reassurance, and she moved the hover cart forward with a growing sense of control. The frost underfoot glimmered like tiny crystals, each step creating delicate crunches that punctuated the soft whir of her braces, and Ethan allowed a faint smile to cross his features as he observed her steadily increasing independence. The interplay of sunlight, shadow, and metallic reflections created a visual rhythm that mirrored the measured pace of their interaction, and Ethan subtly adjusted his position to maintain optimal guidance while giving her the room to experiment and learn. Lyra's breathing became more even, her concentration deepening as she anticipated the ball's movement, adjusting her angle and grip instinctively, each successful touch reinforcing both her confidence and the bond forming silently between them. Ethan's calm presence, coupled with the precise calibration of her braces, allowed her to engage fully with the activity, the subtle haptic feedback from the servos translating into a sense of competence that was both empowering and rewarding. The playground, bathed in the warm tones of the descending sun, seemed to echo their quiet partnership, the sounds of the servo hums, gentle clicks, and occasional rustle of wind blending into a rhythm of cooperation and mutual focus. Each deliberate movement of the ball and the hover cart was mirrored by careful observation and small adjustments from Ethan, ensuring that Lira could explore her abilities safely while learning the precise coordination required. The soft glow of late-day sunlight highlighted the contours of her alien physiology, the delicate gradient of violet and blue tones shimmering across her skin as she moved with increasing fluidity. Ethan's eyes never left her, noting every micro-shift in balance and posture, guiding her subtly through gestures and encouragement while maintaining her independence. Lyra's tentative smile deepened into one of genuine satisfaction, a reflection of her growing mastery and trust in Ethan's guidance. The bond between human and alien strengthened not through words, but through shared focus, patience, and carefully nurtured confidence. The playground, quiet except for the combined sounds of wind, servos, and subtle friction, felt alive with the unspoken connection of two beings learning, adapting, and thriving together in the frost-laden expanse. The late afternoon sky was painted in shades of amber and soft violet, casting a tranquil glow over the frost-speckled playground as Lira maneuvered the hover cart with steadily increasing confidence, her violet-tinged blue eyes reflecting the warm light and a subtle sparkle of pride. Ethan Carter remained nearby, crouched just enough to maintain an unobtrusive presence, his gaze following every micro-movement of her mechanical legs, noting the smooth articulation of each joint and the precise coordination between her inputs and the responsive servo motors. The quiet hum of the braces harmonized with the occasional whistle of wind through the exposed metal beams overhead, creating a subtle rhythm that underscored the focused intensity of the session. Ethan adjusted a small stabilizer lever on her brace with a deliberate, precise motion, demonstrating its effect on the hover cart while keeping his hands off her directly, allowing her to internalize the mechanics and gain confidence in her own control. "Just a little more forward," he said, his tone calm and encouraging, matching the rhythm of her breathing and the gentle whirring of the servos, offering support without disrupting her focus. Lyra's hands grasped the ball firmly, the friction of the synthetic surface against her gloves and the gentle hum of the device providing tactile feedback that reinforced her growing understanding. The frost beneath her feet glistened in the fading sunlight, tiny crystalline formations catching the light as she shifted weight carefully, her posture straightening with each successful adjustment. Ethan's eyes followed her, every move, noting subtle changes in balance and anticipation, the careful guidance silent but effective, the occasional soft gesture or nod offering reassurance without intrusion. The air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of metallic surfaces and ozone, and Ethan allowed Lira the space to experiment with small maneuvers, observing as she calculated angles and force intuitively, translating the haptic feedback into smooth, deliberate motions. The hover cart responded predictably, gliding along the icy patches with fluid precision, and a quiet smile spread across Lyra's face, a mixture of relief, triumph, and satisfaction that mirrored Ethan's own quiet pride in her progress. The shadows lengthened as the sun dipped lower, accentuating the interplay of light across the playground and the subtle metallic reflections on her braces, highlighting the delicate contours of her alien physiology and the gentle shimmer of her skin under the soft light. Ethan continued to provide calm, measured guidance, pointing out trajectories and subtle cues without ever taking control, reinforcing Lyra's sense of independence while ensuring safety and stability. Each measured push of the ball, each careful step, each successful adjustment built upon the last, creating a seamless flow of learning, confidence, and trust. The frost, the soft wind, the muted echoes of servos, and the warm glow of sunlight combined to form a tranquil, yet purposeful environment, one that allowed Lyra to fully engage, explore her abilities, and experience the quiet satisfaction of achievement. Ethan watched her with steady focus, aware of every micro-movement, every shift in balance, every flicker of expression, ensuring that her progress continued uninterrupted. The late-day atmosphere, rich in color and sound, underscored the subtle bond that had formed between human and alien, a connection forged through patience, careful observation, and the quiet, deliberate rhythm of guidance, trust, and shared focus in the frost-laden playground. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the frost-speckled playground and bathing the scene in a soft, amber glow that mingled with the lingering violet haze of twilight. Lyra's movements had grown fluid, each step measured yet confident, her violet-tinged blue eyes reflecting the dimming light as she guided the hover cart with precision, anticipating the ball's path instinctively. Ethan Carter stood nearby, his posture relaxed yet vigilant, observing the interplay of her mechanical braces and her own adaptive adjustments, the subtle hum of the servos blending with the faint whistle of wind through the exposed metal framework. The air was crisp, carrying the metallic tang of nearby playground structures and the soft scent of frost, and Ethan's eyes followed each micro-shift in her posture, noting how her confidence and skill had evolved over the hours. "That is perfect," he said, his voice calm and steady, a quiet affirmation that resonated with the rhythm of her focus without breaking it. Lyra glanced up, a faint, satisfied smile crossing her delicate features as she aligned the ball for one final maneuver, the subtle glow of her braces reflecting the amber and violet tones of the fading sky. Ethan stepped forward slightly, not to intervene, but to provide reassurance, his gloved hands resting lightly at his sides, a silent presence that balanced independence with support. The frost beneath her feet glimmered like tiny diamonds, each movement producing soft crunches that punctuated the quiet hum of the hover cart, and the shadows cast by the low sun stretched long across the field, creating a visual tapestry that highlighted every micromotion and mechanical adjustment. Lyra's breathing was steady, her focus unwavering as she guided the ball along a gentle curve, her posture upright, her fingers brushing the surface with a delicate precision that spoke to her growing mastery. Ethan noted the fluidity of her movements, the way her brace responded seamlessly to her input, and allowed a small, approving nod, recognizing the culmination of patience, guidance, and trust that had carried them through the afternoon. The playground, quiet except for the soft whir of servos, the gentle sigh of wind, and the faint clicks of adjustments, felt almost suspended in time, a space where learning, confidence, and human kindness coalesced into something tangible. Lyra's smile broadened as the hover cart reached the intended point, the ball coming to a gentle stop at her precise control, and Ethan's chest warmed with a quiet pride, the satisfaction of witnessing transformation in motion more profound than any words could capture. The twilight deepened, and the interplay of shadows and light reflected off her delicate alien features and the polished metal of her braces, creating a visual harmony that mirrored the unspoken connection between them. Each movement, each controlled push of the ball, each careful adjustment had built toward this moment, a testament to persistence, guidance, and the subtle art of encouragement. Ethan stepped back slightly, allowing Lyra the space to savor her achievement, the air cool against his face as he watched her tilt her head slightly in acknowledgement, her gaze meeting his in a shared understanding that transcended species, words, and circumstance. The playground, bathed in the warm tones of sunset and the gentle shimmer of frost, held a quiet, enduring peace, the rhythm of their collaboration and the bond forged through patience, observation, and trust lingering in the fading light, leaving both human and alien aware of the quiet triumph that had been realized together over the long, measured afternoon.